So today we'll solve one problem for linear regression. First I will do one problem and show how to solve it. Then I'll give you an exercise for you to solve. You can do it and then you can take one problem for homework also. After that we'll move on to the Bayes theorem concept. So basically this linear regression, logistic regression, all this come under supervised learning.
Mm. Mm.
So this linear regression, logistic regression comes under supervised learning. That means initially we give the input data and also the expected outcome data as an entire data set, and based on the existing information only we are trying to develop a model, and then once if your model is ready, then any input data if you give, it should predict the outcome or it should classify the categorical variable according to whether it is linear or logistic regression. Okay, so in case of linear regression, what we are doing is we are going to develop a linear model. Even in logistic also it is a linear model. I would like to know your understanding about model. uh, in general, what is a model, or what are the different models that you are aware of?
Like linear, quadratic, those kind of things you're asking, ma'am.
Yeah, exactly. You can tell about that linear, quadratic, or suppose in your chemistry high school you would have studied about chemical equation, isn't it? And you will be balancing and chemical equation. So that is also called as a model. And in physics, you will be using some empirical relationships, isn't it? And then suppose if the amount of light that is being illuminated on a room is equal to the amount of light that is incident plus reflected, something like that, you will have a formula, isn't it? So that is also called as a model. So basically, model means it refers to some kind of a relationships between the variables. So it could be a mathematical model or an empirical model or anything, deterministic, statistic, stochastic. So it depends. If it is V equal to IR or Fahrenheit equal to 9 by 5 Celsius plus 32, then it is a deterministic model, it is a perfect. So in case of linear, the model is not perfect, it is a statistical model. That means your y equal to mx plus c. In this case, the values that you substitute will not be exactly perfect. Some minor here and there glitches may happen. So that we call it as an error. So this is also a kind of a model. So what we generally do in this classification or in general in machine learning is based on some data, what we are collecting or what is already been available to you, we will take the data, and the data can be, suppose if you are following a supervised learning technique approach for developing a classifier or developing a model, then you will be taking the input data and the output data as well, and together you find a relationship between the input and output. That means you are trying to develop a relationship between the input and output model. So that relationship could be a mathematical equation or whatever type that you are trying to do. So in case of a linear regression, we are going to develop a mathematical relationship that fits into a straight line. So here by model, we mean to say that a straight line and then an equation of a line. So that is the model that we are going to develop. And then once if the straight line is developed with the existing data, then any new unknown value if you give, your linear regression should predict the predict or estimate the value. Okay. Similarly, the logistic regression also, suppose for studying for the exams, if somebody is sleeping for long hours and studying for a lesser amount of time, whether he will pass or fail. So if you want to find that, then based on the number of hours of sleep and the number of hours of study, you can develop a model. Now, if you develop a model and give an input, suppose I have slept for 2 hours and I have studied for 8 hours, will I pass or fail? Since my number of hours of sleep is less and study is more, it can give a value pass. Sometimes if both are same, it can give a pass or a fail, that way. So it depends on what type of value I am giving and what type of value I am expecting. Okay. So now in case of the supervised learning, we have this Bayes theorem, linear regression, logistic regression, support vector machine, random forest. All these are supervised learning algorithm techniques. That means you give the input data and also you give the output data. Based on that, you develop a relationship and create a model. Then for any unknown input, it will predict or classify. Whereas in case of unsupervised, only the input is given, the classifier is allowed to or given the freedom to learn on its own. So this difference between supervised, unsupervised, and one more reinforcement will be dealt very much in detail later when we move to neural networks. But now, since we have started with linear regression, I'm just giving you an information that this comes under the supervised learning approach. Okay. So now let us start with the problem solving. So the question I'll read, this is from one of the previous question paper. Given the following data, find the equation of the line that best fits the given data. So the data is like this: salary, as I have discussed earlier, the example, salary, it is in thousands. And then experience in years. Okay. So now here experience is the independent variable. Okay. Experience is the independent variable and you can write it as X if you want. So this is the dependent variable. You can write it as Y. Okay. Now let us see the data. 24,000 for 4 years experience, 43 for 7, 23.7, 1, 34.3, 5 and 35.8 for 8. Okay. So this is the data that is given. So for this, the questions, there are two questions. Find the equation of the line that best fits the given data. The next one is for the experience of 6 years, predict the salary and mean square error. Okay. So the first one is we have to formulate a line or a model, an equation of a line we have to develop that best fits the given data. Another one is for the experience of 6 years, predict the salary and also the mean square error. Okay. So now let us first start with the model. We have to develop the equation. Then we have to do the rest of the question. Okay. So have you all noted? Please note the
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
Okay. So now we can go for solving this. I will be erasing this and write once again in terms of X and Y, and we need more space. Or suppose if I write here, can you see X bar equal to 5? If I write, can you see?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so let us first write the equation of B0 and B1. I think you can write the equation and the formulas. What is the equation? The y I cap, or in general y cap equal to B0 plus B1x. This is the equation of the line. So we are going to find the line that best fits the given
Excuse me,
data.
ma'am.
Yeah.
The top part is not visible, ma'am.
Oh,
Ma'am, I can see it, ma'am.
okay, fine now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll try to write up to this. So the equation of the line is B0 plus B1x. So this is the intercept and the slope that we have to find. So can you tell the formula? What is B1? Whether we need to find B0 first or B1 first?
B1.
B1.
Okay, yes. So B1, the formula is summation I equal to 1 to n xi minus x bar into yi minus y bar divided by I equal to 1 to n summation xi minus x bar the whole square. This is B1, and B0 will be y bar minus B1 x bar. Okay, so first let us find B1. So for that you have to see what are the elements that are to be calculated. We have to find the mean of x, mean of y, and then x minus x bar, y minus y bar, and then this whole square. So all this we need to find. So we can have a tabulation for all that. So let us start with xy, then xi minus x bar, then xi minus x bar whole square, and then yi minus y bar. Okay, so 4, 24, 7, 43, 1, 23.7, 5, 34.3, then 8, 35.8. I have taken less number of data so that we are only familiarizing with how to fit the model, not to explore the size of volume of data. So just to know how to solve it, I have taken quite a smaller size of data. So now the mean of x will be 5, and then mean of y will be 32.16. Okay, if anyone have calculated, you can just verify this. So now xi minus x bar is 4 minus 5 minus 1, and then 7 minus, sorry, xi, yeah, 7 minus 5, 2, and then 1 minus 5 is minus 4, 5 minus 5 is 0, 8 minus 5, 3. And this square will be 1, 4, 16, 0, and 6. Now similarly, yi minus y bar, it is 24 minus 32.16. So this will be 8.16. So you can also do the calculation and verify whether the calculation is correct or not.
Ma'am, xi minus x bar whole square 9. 3 square 9.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, you guys are alert now. Okay, so this is done. Now, if I substitute these values into this, I have to sum up all this. So xi minus x bar into yi minus y bar, this minus into minus, this becomes plus, so it will be, I'm just going to calculate this, so this will be 8.16 plus 2 into 10.84, that is 21.68, plus minus 4 into minus 8.46, that is 33.84, plus this is anyway 0, plus 3 into 3.64, that is 10.92, divided by x bar whole square, 1 plus 4 plus 16 plus 9. Okay. So this will be 2.49. Okay. Now we have to find the B naught. So B naught will be yi bar is 32.16 minus B1 is 2.49 and then x.
Ma'am,
Here.
I'm getting y bar as 201, ma'am.
Y bar is average of this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Can anyone else tell me?
32.16.
Okay.
It's 32.16 itself.
Okay.
I think he missed the decimal point between the values.
Okay. And B naught, sorry, I missed it here. B naught is x bar here. B naught is x bar. So x bar is 5. So when you substitute 5 into this, you will get a value for B naught as 19.71. 19.71 you will get. So now we have calculated the values for B naught and B1. So you have to substitute in this equation. So if you substitute in this equation, the line will be y cap equal to 19.71 plus 2.49 into x. So this is the equation of the line, and this line is called as the best fitting line. Okay, this line is called as the best fitting line.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
like in the exams, to how many decimal places we have to round up? Like B1
Two
will
decimal places. Always
only.
remember to use 2 decimal places.
Okay, ma'am.
Anything above 0.5 and above, you can suppose if the value is 8.558 means you can write it as 8.56. Okay. If the value is 8.558, you can write it as 8.56. Suppose if the value is 8.534, then you can write it as 8.53 only. Okay. And this is a very important question that you have asked, because throughout our course we will be using more of this sort of calculations, numericals. In the neural network, we will be doing many arithmetic like this. So please remember to use 2 decimal places like this. Okay. So now this is the best fitting line we have done. The next part of the question is, for the experience of 6 years, predict salary and mean square error. So for the experience of 6 years, the number 6 is not given here because this is the history or your data set, your old data that you have collected. Now you have to estimate your salary when the experience of a person is 6 years. So now in place of X, you have to substitute 6 and calculate Y. Okay. So for the experience of 6 years, we'll be substituting 6 here. 19.71 plus 2.49 into 6, that will be equal to 34.65. This value is in thousands. So if you can observe from this data, for 5 it is 34.3. So for 6 it is coming as 34.65. And for 7 it is 43. Okay, actually this 8 it should be more. Okay, fine, but for 7 it is 43. So between 5 and 7 you are getting a value 34.65. Okay, so this is the Y value predicted for X equal to 6. Now the next part is we have to find the mean square error. So let us see the formula for mean square error.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, can you repeat the part where we substituted X equals to 6 once again?
Yeah. Okay. In the initially, I have read the question. Let me read the question once again. Given the following data, find the equation of the line that best fits the given data. Experience is the independent variable. For the experience of 6 years, predict salary and mean square error. So the first part is fitting the best line that we have done it. This is the equation of the line. Then for the experience of 6 years, predict salary and mean square error. So when your experience is 6, we have to predict the salary. So in this set of data, 6 is not a part of the data. That means you have a history of data with which you have done a model. Now for an unknown data, which the model is not aware of or not seen, for an unseen data, now you have to predict the salary. So your input is 6 years. So in place of X, you substitute 6 and then just a simple arithmetic you perform, you will get a salary here 34.65, and for 5 years it is 34.3. So for 6 years, there is no wonder that it is predicting as 34.65. You can tell it as an absolutely right. And for 7 it is 43. So it is between 34.3 and 43. So you can consider that as the correct prediction. But then there is a mean square error we have to now predict. So if we predict mean square error, we will know that whether it is predicting plus or minus above the average value. Okay. So now let us move on to calculate the mean square error. I will keep the first 2 columns as it is. The rest of the portion I will erase and rewrite. Hope that is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this type of problem you can expect for 6 marks or something like in your midterm. Okay. So the formula for mean square error will be sigma I equal to 1 to n. In the earlier class, we have discussed the error is calculated as y I minus y cap earlier we have discussed yi minus y cap whole square, that is the error. But now, since this is mean square error, we have to calculate the average. We have to calculate the average. So divided by the number of samples, and the numerator is for all the samples. This will be a mean square error. And this error is also called as, or this line model, what we have done is called as the least square error, or the least error regression line, or whatever name you can call. Okay. So now to calculate this, we need to find y cap, and then y minus y cap, and then y minus y cap whole square. Okay, yi should come there, but here it is general. So now y cap, how do you find the y cap?
From the model,
From the model.
by substituting x.
Yeah, by substituting x. Earlier we have substituted 6, isn't it? So now in place of 6, you have to substitute 4, 7, 1, 5, 8, etc. and then calculate y. So b0 plus b1 into 4, b0 plus b1 into 7, 1, 5, etc. If you substitute, you will get y cap. So since the substitution I have already done, I am just writing. You can just verify the calculation. So this will be 29.67, 37.14, 22.2, 32.16, and then 39.63. $29.67, 37.14, 22.2, 32.16, 39.63, and y minus y cap. This minus this we have to do. So this is 5 minus 5.67, 5.86, 1.5, 2.14, minus 3.83, and then squaring this will be 32.15, 34.34, 2.25, 4.58, and then 14.67. Now you have to sum up all this and divide by 5. So if you do that, if you sum up all this and divide by 5, you will get a value as 17.598. You can just check and tell me.
$17.598.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, 17.598. You can write it as 17.6 also. 60 also you can write it. So that is the answer. So maybe this actually this question was earlier given for 8 marks, so it will not be this big for your midsem because it will take more time for calculation. Okay, so maybe we will give some portion of this, a part of this. Okay, so any doubts, you can take one question and then you can work it out, and then you can do one more problem as homework. So after this we will move on to the Bayes theorem. It's 2:15 already. And related to this topic, linear regression topic, and logistic regression also. For logistic regression, I'm not solving any problem now, but then a worked out model has been given in the handout that I have already uploaded in the Teams. I hope you would have noted it, the PDF for regression techniques, so that material will be sufficient for you to practice. You can go through some sample worked out problem, and then some exercise questions are given. You can try to solve those problems later on for practicing. Okay, so please go through that PDF which I have made and then shared it. So please go through it and then take down one question which you can try later, or you can even take 5 minutes to do this. A real estate agent wishes to examine, please write.
Ma'am?
A real estate agent wishes to examine the relationship between the selling price of a house and its size. I'll repeat, a real estate agent wishes to examine the relationship between the selling price of a house and its size. A random sample of 5 houses are selected and the data is given in the table. Apply linear regression and find the equation of the line that best fits the given data. Apply linear regression and find the equation of the line that best fits the given data. For the square feet, 1800. For the square feet, 1800. Find the price and mean square error. For the square feet, which is 1800, find the price and also the mean square error. The mean square error is for the entire data. So now the data is size in square feet and then house price in $1,000. So this is the X and this is the Y. So 1,400, 245, 1,600, 312, 1,700, 279, 1,875, 308, 1,100, 199. Just tell me one thing. Earlier, when you calculated the mean square error, whether the mean square error value can be negative?
No, ma'am.
No, it cannot be negative because you have
Square
already
is there.
taken the square. So it will be always a positive value. So what does that value indicate? That 17.6, what does this indicate?
Like how accurate our answer is?
Yeah, that is right. How accurate our answer is, fine. Then by what value or by how much value or how far our estimate is deviating from the actual line, deviating from the exact line. See, we have predicted one line, fine, but then passing through the set of points, there could be multiple lines, isn't it? So in that case, whether the line that is predicting the model or the model that we made, is it the best fit? If the line that we have, if the model that we have developed, if that is considered as the best fit, then why the error should come? The error should be 0, is it not? But since there is an error, what we can tell is, of course, we have predicted a line that is fitting the data to the maximum extent, but then what happens is, for the X and then the Y, for the experience and the salary, there are some points. Suppose we have taken 5 points. So out of 5 points, I have point 1, 2, 3, etc. 3 points have fitted the line properly, but whereas 2 points are just lying above and below this. That means they will not exactly pass through this, or even if I consider all the points are passing through this, when I give 6 as my X, it will not pass through the line, it may just touch the line. Or if I give an experience 9, then that point may come here. If I give an experience 10, that point may come here. That means there will be some variation, some amount of variation in the estimate. Suppose for 10, if it is here, then from the line there will be some variation. Say the 11 if I'm giving as experience, it is predicting a value here. Then from this line there is a deviation, isn't it? So that much deviation on an average could be 17.6. Okay. So that is the idea. So now you
Where
can
is
take,
the deviation?
pardon?
Like that is mean square error.
Yeah, mean square error.
To find out average error, we will be kind of square rooting it.
Yes, squaring it and then dividing by the number of samples. So that error, actually, this is actually like a, what do you say? Generally, a Gaussian distribution will be like this, isn't it? You will have an average, below average, and above average, some category like that. So you will, how far an element is varying from the mean, you can find, isn't it? So if this is the mean, then here I will find the variation is more. If I move closer to the mean, the variation is less. So if for the value 6, if it is just touching the line, then the error will be less. For 11, if I'm getting a value here, then from that value to that line, the variation is slightly more. So on an average, it could be 17.6. Okay, on an average, that could be the value, but need not be true always. That means for all the 5 given values and for any new unseen value, if you give and if you try to compute, then the error will not be always same as 17.6. On an average, if you take any number of predictions, say I have given 6, suppose you take 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 on an any X value you give and then you try to compute, then for all the predictions that you do, on an average, you will have this particular error. If you want exactly, then you have to subtract the predicted value from the average prediction value. Okay, that is what it means.
Ma'am, I actually meant the numerator is getting squared now, ma'am.
Yeah.
Suppose we take only two values, say 5 and 3. The numerator will be like 5 minus 3, 2, 2 square 4, 4 by 1, it will come 4 now, ma'am. Like we are just comparing one value. The deviation of 5 with the 3. The mean square error will come as 4, but actually the error is root of mean square error. So that will be 2 now, ma'am. Here also, in case of multiple data also, the actual error will be square root of, like average error if we say, that will be square root of MSC, no, ma'am. That I'm telling.
Okay. See, actually, what we do is this mean square error we can find only when you have few set of data, not for one or two, because when you have more number of data only, we can find this. Okay. So the square error we are finding yi minus y cap whole square, that is the square error. If you want to find the square error on an average for all the data, then that is the formula what we have discussed. Okay.
Yes.
You can solve this and then we can go for the next topic, Bayes theorem. Now actually 1 hour time is up, around 2:30 now. So we can start the next Bayes theorem concept at 2:35. You can either do this or you can take a break for 5 minutes. Then we'll resume at 2:35 once again. Meanwhile, you can solve it.
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am? Excuse me, ma'am.
Vishnu, I think ma'am also took a break. Maybe 2:35 she may come back.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Why only 109 students are present? The strength is 137, right? Everybody should attend the classes regularly. Please make a note.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, like, is it right to say that the larger the amount of data that we have, the more precise our prediction is going to be?
Yeah, we can say like that, but there should be some limit to how large it is.
Why should be there? Like, why should my question was actually that, ma'am? Why should there be a limit? Because uh, if the data is really large, then the mean we are using mostly the slope depends on the mean. So the mean of the data is going to be more accurate. Like it is more close to what it should be.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
In that
exactly.
in that case, like high, if we have like really large amount of data as well, we shouldn't have a problem. Like in the initial class you told that regression techniques couldn't handle really large amount of data. That's the reason we went to neural networks, ma'am. So
Yeah,
that's my question, like why would it have a problem? Like mean would be proper, and in that case my prediction should actually turn more correct. So that's my question.
okay, okay. Generally, for large amount of data, the system will be training properly because it was being trained for each and every value, or it knows how to predict based on the history of the data that is being given. Mainly for regression, it involves lot of numerical computations. So here we need to find so many x bar, y cap, etc. So many computations are involved. So when you have large volume of data, the computation capacity increases. The number of computations that we need to perform increases. So that is one thing that slows down the timing or the entire what do you say, if it is a real time system, then the response time is very important. It has to give the output in a within the deadline, isn't it? So when you have large volume of data, then computing will consume time, and then in a real time scenario, if it has to give an outcome within deadline, then if it is a hard real time system, then it will be a failure. So that is one of the reason why we are not using this regression for a real time application, and also with large volume of data. But whereas this neural network, it can handle large volume of data without any failure. That is the reason behind it. So if there is any other reason for this, I will check and let you know, Vishnu.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, as of now, this is the answer that I could give. Hope it is convincing.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, can we say if we train on more number of examples, then it gets overfitted?
Yeah, usually that happens. What happens is once when you give more data, the system tries to fit every data into the model. Say, for example, I think in the yesterday for the logistic, I have drawn one line like this. Line need not be. We say it is a linear model, that means a straight line, but sometimes what happens when the data is more, and if you want all the data points to be on the curve, on the line, then the system creates a very complex data. Suppose if I have two patterns, I will show the two different examples now. I thought we can discuss this more in detail later because we will be discussing very elaborately this topic in the performance of classification measures in neural networks. But then I'll give a short idea about this. Suppose if I have data like this. If I have data like this, then linearly separating it into two classes using a line will be easier. Suppose if I have another kind of data, so in this case, my model can develop like this. In that case, there will be one misclassification here and one misclassification here. Okay. Now, suppose if I can permit this misclassification, okay, if I'm allowing this misclassification to happen, it is okay. Out of 100 only, there is only one failure or one misclassification. If I allow it, it is fine. But then if I don't want that to happen, if I want my classifier to do 100% accurate, then what will happen is this classifier, instead of this linear straight line, it will be a complex model. It will develop a model like this. So this is a simple model and this is a complex model. Okay. So what it does is, it is trying to develop a complex model to fit every data properly onto the classes correctly. So what happens at the time of training, if it does, see, the problem is, suppose these two information could be noise in the data or an outlier, but if my classifier is unaware that these are noises or outliers and it is taking that noise also as a part of data, and if it tries to classify, then this overfitting happens, and then this concept, actually we call it as overfitting because this is a complex model and this is a simple model. So in a complex model, the training error will be 0, but then the testing error will be a little bit more because this is a overfitting data. That means for every data it is trying to perform classification. So what happens when a new data comes, it will try to find whether it is here or here, but suppose if it is on some other location, it could not recognize properly. So that is one thing. And I would prefer to explain about this overfitting once again later on when we do the unit 2 performance of classification measure, where we have the concept of confusion matrix and then the accuracy or the recall precision, those parameters we will be using and then discussing this classification. Okay, we'll be discussing more in detail with neural networks later. Okay. So now we'll move on to the Bayes theorem concept. I hope you would have finished. So now I can share the solution. We can share the solution now. If you have done it, what is the B1 value?
Is it 0.153?
0.145.
0.145.
Yeah. B1 I'm getting as 0.145 And then B naught is
6.057.
no,
53.7, ma'am.
no,
36.85.
no.
Actually, I got B1.16 for that. B0 I got 20.44. So since my B1 itself is wrong, it will be.
46.0.
46.02, ma'am.
Yeah, 46 is
46.0.
correct. 46 is correct. B naught is 46. 46.17 exactly. 179 exactly. If you are taking as 46.2 also it is fine, or 46 also it is fine. But it should be 46.18 or 46.1, like that it is fine. Then equation of the line will be 0.145 plus 46.179 into x, sorry, into x, and then, sorry, you can write it as 46.179 plus 0.145 x. And for the square feet 1800, what is the predicted value for y? Y predicted for x is equal to 1800. You have to substitute 1800 there. You should get an answer 307.
0.179.
Exactly, 0.179. And then mean square error. If anybody has done mean square error,
298.8.
it is coming to me as 303.76. You can check this answer. Okay, all right. You can verify this answer later. Those who have not finished, you can do it and then verify the answer. So now I have another 45 minutes time. So let us quickly move on to the next topic, Bayes' theorem. I think in your earlier courses of probability, you would have definitely studied about conditional probability, joint probability, and even this Bayes' theorem also you would have studied. So we can have a quick recap on what is conditional probability and what is a hypothesis, and then the formula for Bayes' theorem, and then we can quickly solve a couple of problems on that also. All right. I hope you all have noted it. It is fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. For the next class, I expect everybody to attend. Please inform the absentees. Today there is only 108 students who have attended. The strength is 137. I think now by this time, everybody is allowed to attend classes. Everyone has paid the fees, I guess. So next class, I expect everybody to attend. Okay. So now we'll move on to the next topic, Bayes' theorem. and this was being developed by Bayes, so it is called as Bayes theorem. So now let us talk about hypothesis. What is a hypothesis? What is evidence? And then conditional probability. We are not going to discuss joint probability and all now. For us only this is enough. Okay, I am writing hypothesis in singular only. If you are writing in plural, then it is SES. Okay, so now what is a hypothesis in general?
It is any statement which we are supposed to prove.
Yes, exactly. It is a statement. It is a statement which you are going to validate based on the data that you have. So you can also call it as a proposition. You would have studied discrete mathematics and you know what is a proposition. So here hypothesis means a statement with some limited amount of knowledge or the data or the evidence. You are making a statement, and then later on we have to find out more or gather more information to prove it. Okay, so suppose for example you have the diabetic patients list. Okay, and then you look at the diabetic patients list, and then you can tell few people, those who are having the glucose level or the diabetic level above 300 whenever it was taken, then those people are more prone to heart attack. So that is a hypothesis that I am going to make. Okay, and then now how I am going to prove it that my hypothesis is true? So what I will do is I have to collect the data of all the heart attack patients, and then I have to check their blood sugar level, and then for all the people or the sample population derived from the population, if all the heart patients have the diabetic value, the glucose value above 300, then I can say that my hypothesis is true. Otherwise it is false. Okay, so this is how generally in mathematics or in any research we set a statement that is called as an hypothesis. With some information we make a statement, and later on we have to gather the information to validate the statement or prove my statement is true or false, correct or incorrect. Okay, fine. Suppose in my experiment, if I fail, then the hypothesis what I said is false. It means that all the diabetic patients who have above 300 will not get heart attack. Maybe some may get, but all will not get. Okay, so that is the idea. Fine. And then evidence is the details or the necessary information that I use to prove my hypothesis is called as an evidence. And in case of conditional probability, we need the evidence basically. Okay, for example, what we say is suppose you wear socks, and then the one you wear on your left leg is black. I make a statement. Okay, then provided the one that you given that the socks that you wear on your right leg is also black. Okay, suppose you wear a socks, and then you are wearing pair of socks, and then I am telling the left one is black, given that the right one is also black. That means there is some evidence that you are already wearing the black color sock on your right side. So there is a probability, or I am very sure that the left what you are wearing is also to be a black. So in that case, there is some evidence, and then I am making it and I am confirming the other one also to be true. So that is a condition. So given that, so in conditional probability, what we say is, given that one statement is true, you are trying to find or trying to make a proof that the other statement is also to be true. Suppose if it rains heavily today evening, then the next day morning the lawn will be wet and I will not water the lawn. So what is my statement will be is, the lawn is wet given that it would have rained last night. So my evidence is it has rained last night is the evidence, and then my statement is now the probability, given that it is rained last night, the probability of the lawn to be wet is 100%, because you have the evidence that it has rained last night. So that is the way that the conditional probability happens. Okay. The Bayes theorem derivation is not required, but still so the Bayes theorem is written like this. I'm not deriving the Bayes theorem formula to take the conditional probability. Suppose if I have P of A given B, I can write it as P of A intersection B divided by P of B. And similarly for P of B given, I think you know how to read this, P of A given B. That means probability of A given B. B is the evidence. Probability of B given A. We can write it as probability of A intersection B by probability of A. Now you can take these two and then multiply and equate it. You will be getting like this. So that is the derivation. So P of A intersection B is equal to P of A given B into P of B, and that is equal to P of B given A into P of A. And this implies P of A given B equal to P of B given A divided by P of B into P of A if P of B is not equal to 0. If this one is not equal to 0. I hope you can all see this. So this is the Bayes theorem formula. So this H and E you can replace with A and B. So now we need to know what are these elements in this. What are the elements in this? So this is probability of the hypothesis. This we call it as a prior probability. This is probability of H is called as a prior probability, and this is called as a likelihood ratio. And this is called as posterior probability. Okay, this is called as posterior probability. So I will give one example for this likelihood ratio part. For example, you have your favorite football team or cricket team, and then say you are taking in the past so many times all the football matches or the cricket team matches, you have a record of it. And then now, say for example, say the CSK team, I want to know whether the CSK team will win the match or not when the match is happening currently. If I want to predict whether the CSK team will win now or not. So what I will do is, I will take all the past record and then from, suppose out of 10 matches in the past, the CSK team has won 8 matches. In that case, the probability of CSK team winning will be 8/10, and then that is this P of H. And if I have to find a likelihood ratio, this is another numerical value with which you will multiply the probability of H, and then you will get a numerical value, say 0.65 or 0.8 or 0.9. Then you can tell that the probability of CSK winning, given that it has won so many times earlier, or what was the evidence that is given, then you can predict a value 0.65 means 65% chance that, or if it is giving a value 80%, then 80% chance that CSK team will win now the current match. Okay, so this is called as a likelihood ratio, or you can also call it as the experiment when you make the likeliness or the what you call likelihood, as the name implies, what is the percentage of chances that this team is going to win. So for that, a numerical estimation is done using this. So here, probability of the evidence given the hypothesis divided by probability of the evidence. So this is the likelihood ratio. Okay. Now, based on this formula, we will solve a couple of problems for this Bayesian theorem. I will solve 2 problems. Then there are many more exercises problems given in the slides. I have shared the slides. You can check in the slides also. Many solved problems are given and some examples are given. You can try those. Okay. And this is for Bayesian theorem. Then after this, the total probability rule also we can take and then we can find. So that will be in the denominator, you will have a total probability of all the events that are occurring. That is another variation of this that we are going to do. So now let us take this. Are you all listening or slept?
Listening, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Listening. Okay, nice of you. So the question here is, what is the probability of rolling a dice and its value is 4, knowing that the value is odd? So the evidence is A, that is knowing that the value is odd, what is the probability that when you roll a die, you get a value less than 4? So for this, we have to write this formula and find all the 3 elements. Okay. You can do that way, or you can do that way, or we can try like this. Probability of A will be rolling a dice and the value is odd, because knowing the value is odd is actually A. So you have to roll a dice and then find whether it is odd or its value is odd. So what will be the value for this? You have the dice with the numbers 1 to 6. One to 6 you have. So for everyone you have the equal probability 1 by 6, 1 by 6 and 1 by 6. So for probability of A, rolling a dice and its value is odd will be what? Odd numbers will take 1, 3 and 5. So that is 1 by 6 plus 1 by 6 plus 1 by 6. So that is 3 by 6 and that is equal to 1 by 2. Okay. And next we have to find probability of B. What is probability of B? That means rolling a dice and its value is less than 4. So value less than 4 means up to this. So 1 by 6 plus 1 by 6 plus 1 by 6. That is once again 3 by 6 and 1 by 2. Same as above. Now if you try to draw a Venn diagram. Now in the probability of A, I have odd is 1, 3, 5. This is probability of A. And in probability of B, I have 1, 2, 1, 3. Now, my A intersection B will be only this portion 1 and 3. So that is
0.23.
2 by 6, 1 by 2. All right, sorry, 1 by 3. So my probability of A intersection B is 1 by 3. So now when you substitute everything in the formula, you will have probability of B given A is equal to probability of A intersection B divided by probability of A, that is equal to 2 by 3. You can just substitute 1 by 3 divided by 1 by 2, you will get 2 by 3. So this way is you can do, and now we will apply the hypothesis formula what we have written earlier. This is the first formula, and based on the other formula we can solve one more problem. I hope it is clear. You have noted this. Is 3, 5. So let us do quickly. So shall we proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
So let us solve this and then move on to the next. So here, given that there is a face card, this is regarding the deck of cards. In a pack of card, you will have number 52, total 52 cards, and then in each suite you will have 13, and then given that it is a face card, what is the probability that it is a king? So for that, when you write like this, the likelihood ratio will be probability of a card that is face, given that it is a king, divided by probability of face card. This is the likelihood ratio into probability of king. So now we have to find all the three and substitute here. Can anyone tell me what is the probability of this? Given it is a king, what is the probability that it is a face?
1, ma'am. Kings are always face.
Yes, exactly, because every king is a face card. So this is always 1. And then there are 3 face cards in each suite, isn't it? Jack, queen and king, right? There are 3 face cards. So what is the probability of a face card? There are 3 face cards, Jack, queen and king, isn't it? We are talking about one suite only. So Jack, queen and king, there are 3 face cards out of 13 of a suit. So what will be the probability of a face card?
12 by 50.
12 by 52.
12 by 52, and that is equal to 3 by 13. All right. And what is the probability of a king?
4 by
4 by 52, 1 by 30.
One by 13. That is 4 by 52. That is equal to 1 by 13. Now, if you just simplify, it will be 1 divided by 3 by 13 into 1 by 13. So it should give you actually 1 by 3. 13 by 3 into 1 by 13. Okay. So this is how the Bayes theorem works. So I will give you 2 exercise problems to solve. You can take it as a homework. And in the meanwhile, I will continue for 10 more minutes. We will do the total probability also. Just one problem we will take and solve for the total probability. I will give the problem, and while solving it only, I will explain what is the total probability. Actually, this total probability is related to Bayes theorem. Here we are writing probability of face only, but instead, if you have multiple items, then you will have a total probability here. That is the only difference, nothing new. Okay, I'll read the question. It goes like this. In a bolt factory machine, in a bolt factory, there are 3 machines, 1, 2 and 3. Okay. Each machine is producing 20%, 30% and 50% of the total number of produce. Okay. And then from all these machines, the percentage of defective, the balls that are defective from each machine are 5%, 3% and 2%. Okay. Suppose if I ask you a question, a bolt is selected at random, what is the probability that it is defective? Okay. If a bolt is selected at random, what is the probability that it is defective? Okay. So in that case, how do we solve? So first we have to find the probability of all these machines and then the probability of their respective defects. Okay. So probability of machine 1 is
Ma'am, the question is, if a bolt is selected at random, what is the probability of it being defective now, ma'am?
Yeah,
From
exactly.
where, which machine it is not given, ma'am? Like the
No,
question.
that is not given. That is the next part of the question.
Oh, then, okay, ma'am.
That is the
Defective
next
means we
part.
just have to sum up, I felt. So, I thought.
Yes.
Yes.
That is coming in the next part. So, probability of machine 1 is 0.2 percentage. I mean 20%. Probability of machine 1 is 0.2. Probability of machine 2 is 0.3. And the machine 3 is 0.5. This is probability. Okay. Now probability of the defect from machine 1, probability of defect from machine 2 and probability of defect from machine 3. So that is 5%, 3% and 2%. So I can write it as 0.05, 0.03 and 0.02. Okay. So now what is the probability that a bolt that you take, it is being defective? So that is probability of D. That is equal to, can one of you tell me?
P of M1 into P of D by M1 plus P of M2 into P of D by M2 plus P of M3 into P of D by M3.
Yeah, absolutely right. So we have to just multiply this with this, this with this, and this with this, and sum up. So 0.2 into 0.05 plus 0.3 into 0.03 plus 0.5 into 0.02. So the answer is 0.029. Now, the next, this is probability of being defective. This we have calculated. Now this we call it as the total probability. Now we have to apply this into the Bayes theorem formula. So the next question is, what is the probability that the defective item produced is by M1? What is the probability that the defective item is produced by the machine 1, M1? That means we have to find probability given that the bolt is defective, and what is the probability that it is being produced by M1. So that is equal to probability of D into M1 divided by what?
Total probability of defect.
Total probability of defect into probability of M1, right? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Probability of M1 into probability of this divided by the total probability. So this is the Bayes theorem. Now you have probability of D 0.029 and probability of D given M1 you have, and probability of M1 you have 5%, 0.2. So just substitute and complete it. That's all. Okay. So that's all with this Bayes theorem. Now, once if you finish this, I will give you a couple of questions to solve as an exercise, which you can do it now before 3:30 or you can do it as a homework. So you may think the subject is neural networks and deep learning. Why are we studying about Bayes theorem and then these regression techniques? The next class on Monday, we will be discussing on linear discriminant analysis, that is called as LDA. That is also one of the important classification technique, and upon that we will be discussing PCA, principal component analysis. So basically all this are actually different types of classifiers. As I said in the beginning, all these are varieties of classifiers. And then only finally the neural network comes into picture. But apart from that, there are several other classifiers like random forest and then hidden Markov model, CART. So many are there. But then in the syllabus, it is limited to only these and then the neural networks. So you are given an idea of what is a classifier and then what is a mathematical model and then what is the problem with linear regression, why we are going for logistic regression, and then what is Bayes theorem. Bayes theorem gives a probability percentage, but then your logistic also gives a probability percentage. Then why can't we use that? Why we are going for this? And then when you have this, why we are going for LDA next? What Bayes theorem cannot solve and LDA can solve. So that is what we are going to discuss in the next class. Okay. So you need to know this part, then only you can understand the LDA part very clearly. Okay, that is the idea. So have you finished this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it will be 0.010 by 0.029, right?
Yes, ma'am.
0.2 into 0.05 by 0.029. So what is the answer?
0.3448.
Okay. Yeah, 0.3448 I'm getting.
Yes, ma'am.
0.3448. Okay, so that's it. I think you all have done. You have given me the right answer. So I hope you have all understood the concepts clearly. Can I assume like that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's good.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
now, okay. Now you take down 2 questions. A lamp produced by the Lunar Company was found to be defective. A lamp produced by the Lunar Company was found to be defective There are three factories A, B, C. Where lamps are manufactured. Just hold on. Let me see if I have the question. I will share the screen. I have shared the question. Can you read this? Vishnu?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you can just note the question and solve it. So have you done it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, everything is given, right? You have to just substitute. So what is probability of C given D?
0.407.
Yeah, 0.40678. So for those who require me to write, I will just write it once. Probability of C given D will be equal to probability of D given C into probability of C by total probability. So that is 0.30 into 0.020 divided by 0.35 into 0.015 plus 0.35 into 0.010 plus 0.30 into 0.020, that is equal to 0.40678. Okay. And you can take the next question that I will leave it to you. You can solve it later or as a homework. This is the next question. So solve this and tell me the answer. If you have solved, you can give me the answer.
Point 857, ma'am.
Yeah, just a second. Let me check.
Yes, sir.
0.853 I'm getting. Numerator is 0.4845, denominator is 0.05678. So the answer is 0.85329. Oh, I'm sorry. One second. I'm sorry. 0.857 is correct. Yeah, sorry. So you will have 0.08 into 0.6 divided by 0.08 into 0.6 plus 0.02 into 0.4, that will be 0.857. So 85.7%, he could be a smoker. Have you all got this answer, 0.857?
Yes.
Okay. So shall we stop here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So Monday, let us meet at 3rd hour, and then the next topic, LDA, is a slightly an extended topic. It will take more than 50 minutes for me. So since the 4th hour is free, I'm planning to extend it for a few more minutes. If you have any other class or some other activity occupied, you please tell me upfront so that I will plan accordingly. As of now, I am planning to extend up to 12 that day. The class will start at what time? 10:45, right?
Yes, ma'am.
10:45 to 11:35. So I may take some 10 to 15 minutes extra